Hello everyone, this is a Notifier AFP-400 fire alarm control panel. These were first produced in the mid-1990s and were designed for small to medium-sized facilities. The AFP-400 is an addressable fire alarm panel with a maximum capacity of up to 396 devices, 198 detectors, and 198 modules, split across 2 SLC loops. There's also an AFP-300, which is identical, but only has 1 SLC loop and half the device capacity of the AFP-400. Like the AFP-200, the AFP-400 is designed to be a compact, cost-effective panel while providing more features and flexibility. The AFP-400 and the 300 support advanced smoke detectors like laser, harsh environment, and multi-criteria sensors, as well as additional output circuits and voice communication options via the AMG1 and FFT7. All of this in addition to networking, releasing, and PC printer options that are seen on the AFP-200. So let's jump right into this. For this demonstration, the AFP-400 is configured for pre-alarm. This allows detectors to send an alert signal to the panel, but not enough to initiate a general alarm and full evacuation of the building. This can be helpful in many different applications, such as larger buildings where you don't want to evacuate everybody for a nuisance alarm. As an example, let's simulate a hotel fire alarm system. On the table are devices seen in the common areas and hallways, such as this BGX-101L pole station, FSI 751 ionization smoke detector, and a Wheelock AS horn strobe. These 3 devices are part of the general alarm portion of the system. If the pole or smoke detector activates, then the entire building is evacuated. The Wheelock AS and all other notification appliances in the lobbies, hallways, and individual rooms will activate. So let's demonstrate that. Okay, alarm is silenced. Strobes continue to flash. You can hear the Wheelock DSM sync module clicking away there. And on the panel, displays pole station, general alarm, and then the timestamp. So let's reset, and then we can activate the smoke detector. And now for the smoke detector. We can also track the detector's alarm status by going into read status and read point and enter the address of the detector. In this case is 201. And that's the detector. It's currently at 1% threshold. So we need to get that to 100%. There it goes, 42%. It'll probably continue to rise because I sprayed a lot of smoke there. 62%. See if it goes any higher. 70%. It's getting there. Might need a little bit more encouragement. Silenced again, and the detector is alarmed now. Just aired it out, so we should be all clear to reset. So this is back to normal. On the floor here are devices you may see in the hotel room. A detector with a sounder base, and in rooms that are accommodating people with deafness or hard of hearing, a strobe. This button is part of the security system. We'll explain that later. So we have a Wheelock RSS strobe here. The detector is an IPX751 multi-criteria smoke detector. It combines ionization, photoelectric, and thermal detection principles all in one detector. Ionization sensors are good at detecting fast flaming fires, while photoelectric sensors are better at detecting smoldering fires. The thermal sensor is helpful for any fires that generate lots of heat. All of this combined provides a detector that can provide early warning while also reducing false alarms. The detector is mounted to a system sensor B501BH sounder base. This sounder base will activate whenever the detector alarms or if triggered by the panel. In places like hotel rooms, multi-criteria sensors can be useful in detecting nuisance alarms, such as if someone is smoking or vaping in their room. Instead of initiating a full evacuation of the building, the detector can send a pre-alarm signal to the panel, which alerts the hotel staff, and the local sounder base will start to beep, and if there is a strobe, it will start to flash. But no other signals in the building will activate. So let's demonstrate this by activating this detector with just a little bit of smoke, not enough to activate it for a full alarm. So here we go. Just a little bit, and we'll see what happens. There's pre-alarm. Strobe starts to flash. The detector is activated, and eventually and that was a quick demonstration of pre-alarm. So when a small amount of smoke activated this detector, the panel went into pre-alarm, the room strobe started flashing, and the local sounder base eventually activated. These do have a brief delay whenever there's an alarm. And once the smoke cleared, the strobe stopped flashing, the sounder base eventually stopped sounding, and the panel goes back to normal. So say you accidentally activate the smoke detector in your room with some deodorant spray or anything else, and you start frantically waving at the detector to make it stop sounding. It eventually stops sounding, the strobe stops flashing, and everything's back to normal. No one needs to be evacuated, and the guest across the other side of the hotel probably didn't even notice anything. It's the nice thing about pre-alarm, especially when handling nuisance alarms. Now let's say hypothetically that the same room's detector keeps going into pre-alarm, and you want to figure out what's going on. For pre-alarm, in the alert function, once the alarm threshold is cleared, then the panel goes back to normal. So to review that event, you have to go into history. So go to read status, read history, and now we'll go back and see what happened. So you see right here, pre-alarm, multi-sensor, and that's just the alert threshold. And then that's the address. So say this is like room 101 keeps going into alarm, pre-alarm. But not long afterward it clears, and then system goes back to normal. But say for instance you keep seeing multiple entries of that, like every few seconds, then perhaps you can go up to that room and see what's going on. Because you never know. It could be someone smoking in the room. It could even be a small fire that's going unnoticed in that room, and perhaps an early warning was all that was needed to extinguish it before it turned into something uncontrollable. One last thing, let's activate this button. This will initiate a security alarm on the panel and activate that system sensor mass SMA horn that sets a high-low. So that was a quick demonstration of the security function on the AFP-400. Of course, this is a fire alarm panel, and security isn't its main function, but you do have that option. For example, say the same hotel has side and rear entrances that are only accessible via a key card. These doors remain locked otherwise. But for some reason, one of those doors remains open for an unusual amount of time. The sensor at that door can send a signal back to the panel. The panel indicates a security alarm and where it's happening, and it can activate the sounder for that door. And the hotel staff can go and investigate the source of the alarm. This can be taken a step further. For instance, if a door remains open for a long time, but then someone comes and closes the door, then instead of having to open up the panel and reset, the panel will automatically shut off the sounder at that door, and the system goes back to normal without any user intervention. This is just one of the many examples of features that higher-end adjustable panels like these can do, especially one that's not fire-related. The AFP-400 is a modular panel. It can be used in a variety of different cabinets and enclosures. This AFP-400 is in a mini cabinet, which supports the main CPU module and up to one circuit module. The full-size cabinets, such as the Cab 3 and Cab 4 series, could hold up to 8 circuit modules, as well as voice and telephone options, the AMG1 and FFT7, along with their accessories like amplifiers and other components. Here's the panel with the door open, and an optional adjust panel can be installed which protects all the inside circuitry. The CPU and its full keypad are accessible, as well as any buttons on the circuit modules. Here's what the AFP-400 looks like with the adjust panel removed. So down here are two transformers connected to the main power supply, the NPS-400. Your AC inputs, battery connection, auxiliary power, and the power supply also comes with 4 signal circuits, which are up there, and 4 relays, one for alarm, one for trouble, one for supervisory, and one for security. The supervisory and security relays can be converted to alarm relays if desired. This card right here is a NAM232 network card to be used on a Notifier net system. Now typically the mini cabinets do not support installation of network cards, but this one is just in here for future use. Right here is the CPU module. On the top right are the SLC loops. The AFP-300 is the same, except it doesn't have this second loop here. This small terminal block here is the ACS terminals for annunciators like the ACM16. This larger terminal block here is for terminal mode annunciators like the LCD80TM. These top 2 terminal blocks right here are the RS-232 ports. One is for PCs or network cards like the NEM232, and this left one here is for printers. This orange connector here is power from the main power supply, and these ribbon cable connectors right here go to circuit modules, like that one. This strip right here is the panel's firmware, and as seen on the label, the AFP-300 and 400 share the same firmware. The AFP-300 and 400 firmware can vary anywhere from 1.0, which is meant for mini cabinets and has no networking capabilities, to the latest, which is 3.70. Version 3.65 or higher is needed if the AFP-400 or 300 is to be connected to an NCA2 network control annunciator. Firmware version 3.62 or higher is needed to use the FDU80 annunciator. And lastly, this large ribbon cable here connects back to the main power supply. This is used to monitor the power supply for any troubles on the signal circuits, relays, or any other components in the power supply itself. Here is a circuit module. This is a CRM4 relay module. It provides 4 relays, and there's an expander module, a CRV4, behind it to bring it to a total of 8 relays. 2 of these relays are connected, and are used to control the B501BH sounder base down there. The rest are just spares. This is the same type of relay module that's used on the System 5000. The AFP-400 and 300 supports any of the output modules that were used on the System 5000. These include this relay module, the ICM4 signal module, the VCM4 speaker module, and a DCM4 dual channel module. This label here provides a very basic summary of the various components that can be installed on the AFP-400. Now let's take a look at the basic operator controls and the menu interface on the AFP-400 CPU. From the flap closed, there are 5 operator controls: acknowledge, silence, drill, system reset, and a lamp test. Pulling the flap down, you have access to some basic instructions and a full keypad with letters, numbers, arrow keys, and some additional functions here. To enter the menu, press enter. You have access to either programming or read status. Read status was demonstrated before, reading the points, history, and alarm history. There's also an option to print these if a printer is installed on the system. Now let's check out programming. Programming mode prompts the user to enter a passcode. The default passcodes can be found in the user manual as per usual. Here's the status change level in programming. The user can disable points, adjust sensitivity for detectors, clear verification tallies, clear history, set time and date, or conduct a walk test. Now let's enter the programming level. So let's start first with the utility section. Get 4 options here. Dynamic poll sets whether the SLC loops are going to be in a harsh noise environment or not. When set to no, the panel will prioritize faster response times. Local control is very simple. It enables or disables all the keys on the keypad. This may be set to no if only another panel or network enunciator is to control this panel. The trouble reminder sounds the panel's internal piezo intermittently when there's a trouble in the system. On this panel, it's disabled. And finally, alarm scroll sets whether to display multiple events automatically or not. Now let's look at network programming. In network programming, you can set the thresholds of the channels on the network card, set the node number, and the ACS offset. The node number is set to 0 if the panel is going to be standalone, which it is in this case. And finally, basic program. This has a bunch of various options for programming the entire system, and is similar to that of the AFP-400. 0 clears the entire panel's database. 1 is auto-program. You can add or delete devices depending on what's on its database already. 2 is point programming. Take a quick look at that. You can either delete or modify points here. The only way to add points is through auto-program. So let's look at a module. So look at the poll station, or in this case, the security button. So it's programmed as a security point, the label, address, and there are 5 zones that can be set for this module. And there's a couple of different point types here too. Security, there's a security alarm obviously. Trouble monitor, there's trouble. And there's a couple other special options here, including some for releasing options, including non-fire tamper and supervisory. There's a supervisory indicator there, water flow, blank, and so forth. Monitor is usually the default for any modules, unless it's a output module like a relay or a signal module. Now let's look at a detector. Let's look at the multi-detector that's on the floor. So it's a multi-sensor. It's set to zone 0, which is the general alarm zone. Got your label on the top, address on the bottom right. There's a couple options here. You can set the alarm sensitivity and the pre-alarm sensitivity. The higher the number, the less sensitive it is. So pre-alarm is set to pretty high, and the general alarm is set to pretty low. Pre-alarm level 1 is a self-optimizing level. In this case, the detector will automatically set its pre-alarm thresholds depending on its environment. You can also set verification and some other options down here. You can also program the notification circuits that are on the main power supply. So let's look at signal circuit 1. Sets your horn circuit, audible signal is 1, that's the label. BO1 is the address point. And then you can set several different options here. You can set if it's silenceable, walk test, and some other options. And there's 5 zones you can set this signal circuit to. You can also look at any panel circuit modules like the CRM4 here. Address 11 sets to this relay. So it's a relay point, pretty much the same options. This one's not set for walk test, zone 0. Fairly straightforward. 3 allows changing the passcodes on the system. If you acquire one of these panels and the passcodes are changed, there is a way to backdoor all of the AFP panels. 4 is message. This sets the system normal message, as seen in this demonstration. 5 are the zones. It allows changing the label of each of the zones on the system. 6 is special functions. These are special function zones. So you have pre-signal, releasing zones, time zones, holidays, signal coding, and pre-alarm. So if you go to F8, you can set the signal codings on the system. So the AFP-400 has temporal, California code, 2-stage, several different 2-stage options, and march time. All the signal coding on this demonstration was done through the DSM module. And the last option is pre-alarm, which was enabled in this system. And it's set for alert mode. There's also a action mode, which is a bit different. Unlike alert mode, action mode, pre-alarm, the pre-alarm will stay on the panel and only could be cleared with a system reset. It can also be used to activate additional control modules and other options. Say for instance, there's some equipment in a room and say the detector over it detects a pre-alarm state, it can shut off the equipment in that room. Stuff like that. 7 has a bunch of system options. Silence inhibit, auto silence, verification delay, US or European formatted time, terminal mode if there's any terminal mode enunciators on the system, AC delay, the terminal type, blink, which sets whether the addressable devices will blink or not. On the AFP-400, these do blink a bit slower. ST sets the SLC loop style, style 4 or style 6. These are both style 4. And ACS, which is set to Y if there's any ACS enunciators on the system. And lastly, 8 is check programming. This just allows the panel to run through its configuration, and if there's any errors, it'll display them here. In this case, the panel considers the configuration of this relay to be off, whether it should be sound support or not, which in this case, yes. So, to the operator, this is not an error, although the panel thinks so. But this is not going to stop the panel from running. It's more of a precautionary measure. So you just go to escape, and the panel is back to normal. One of the nice features of some notifier panels, like the AFP-400, is the ability to program the system while it continues to operate. Many other companies, when programming mode is entered, it effectively disables the system and it won't be able to provide any protection until it's reset. With notifier panels like the AFP-400, even if there's an active fire, security, supervisory, or trouble condition on the panel, it can still be programmed, and changes will take effect almost immediately in most cases. And that concludes this overview of the AFP-400 fire alarm control panel. Like the AFP-200, the AFP-400 saw continued service up into the mid-2000s, but was ultimately discontinued in the late 2000s, being replaced with panels like the NFS-2640. As of recording, parts for the AFP-400 are still relatively easy to find online. While it may be tedious to build, the AFP-400 demonstrates nearly all the features that notifier addressable panels had to offer during the time period, and it still holds up very well today. Many later notifier addressable panels, like the NFS-640, NFS-320, and NFS-2640, all build off the same operating and menu structure as the AFP-400. And while those panels have newer features, they tend not to be as sturdy as the AFP-400 is. All things considered, the AFP-400 still remains one of Notifier's best addressable fire alarm panels. In any case, if you have any questions or comments on the AFP-400, feel free to post them below. But until next time, have a nice day.